Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Telworx Business Series. It is wonderful to see all of you guys here in the morning. As usual, I'd like to start by thanking the Whittier and Glendora Chambers for their support of this series, as well as all of the work and support that they provide to our local business communities. So thank you guys very much for that. This morning, we are talking about internet service. It's something that has become such a vital part of our lives, both personally and professionally. And yet there is still a ton of confusion out there about it. What are the different types of service? What does it mean to have a different upload speed than a download speed? Why can there be such massive differences in pricing, especially on the business side? And a lot of that confusion comes from simply this. It's not your job and it's not the best use of your time and energy to become an expert in internet service. That's why we have people like Kevin Francis from CCI with us here this morning. It is his business to be an expert in internet service. CCI, they're known as an aggregator or reseller of internet service. And working with a company like them gives your business a couple of distinct advantages. Number one, you'll still get the underlying service from the big carriers, from the Verizons, the AT&Ts. But the great thing about it is your account is actually serviced by CCI, which means you get to call all of their nice, friendly support personnel. You don't ever have to call the big guys and deal with them. Number two, CCI has massive relationships with all of the major carriers. And when I say massive, I mean like in the top 10, top 15 clients that those big carriers have. So when you work with a company like CCI, you get to leverage that relationship. And now all of a sudden, your small account, which is relative because it's a big deal to you and it's important to you, but depending on the size of it, it may not look the same to these larger carriers. But when you're working with someone like CCI and you have the clout that they carry, all of a sudden your account becomes much bigger and much more important to those major carriers. So with that, I will thank Kevin for being here. And Kevin, please take it away.
Thank you. I am a privilege to have this honor to talk to you guys. And just to give you some background of where I've came from, before I got into channel sales and running sales, I was a network engineer. I had my Cisco and other certifications, ran IT back in Boston for some great companies. And internet was just starting off out back then. And, we had, some frame relays and different things that we're not going to be talking about today because they don't kind of apply. But as I was going through this, I wanted to kind of keep it more of an option to have some discussions, but also I wanted to put some questions in your mind before we start going over the internet connections. And if you do a Google search, you'll find out anywhere from 5 to 9. What they're saying out there are the different types of internet connections that are available and still being used today. And so as you're looking at the questions that I came up with, and there's going to be more questions, but these were 4 that jumped out to me as I was putting this together, and how could I help you with understanding your business needs. And first one is, what do I need? And so as we go through the next few slides, be thinking about what do I need for internet? And then it's, why are there so many options? And there's going to be some underlying questions under there is, will help you understand why there's so many options, and then how are those going to be used. How am I going to use it, and what applications do I need to use? And as we get going through, and we'll have some discussions that some types of internet are great for particular types of traffic, and then there's others that are better for other type of traffic. And why use more than one? And that'll lead us into a different avenue of the internet, and why people are using more than one at a time. So I'm just going to bounce in to the next slide. And it was funny because I actually was at a customer site not too long ago, and they are still using this type of internet, and it is dial-up. It's like, I thought most of those people have gone away, but this customer, they're still using some dial-up modems, and they're using those modems for small different applications. Very rare. Most of the dial-up internet, from what I assumed, had gone away, but the dial-up internet is still gone. It's where you would take a 1FB or what's called a POTS line, a plain old telephone line. And, back in the old days of AOL, the having to, get your baud modem going. But we're not going to spend a lot of time there. The next ones are still, in my opinion, in play today, is DSL. And, most of the LECs will have a DSL product. And that's going to be slightly different than another product that will be coming up. In DSL, it's using some copper pairs and they've migrated it away from the copper pairs of the old DSL, and now they're using some of the digital subscriber line on some fiber. And like the LECs will now start delivering fiber to the home. And the difference on this is it is an oversubscribed network, and there's always going to be, from what I found on DSL, you're going to have, and which is very similar, and I'm going to bring up this. No, I put them out of order. So with DSL, there's going to be different upload and download speeds, and that can play into what you're trying to do and how you're trying to use the internet, with what kind of business applications that you're going to need. Another type is wireless, and it's going to run across the 3G and 4G networks. And the only downside about this type of an internet is you can maybe, on a couple of different things that I found, I've only seen it maybe 12 to 18 megs. They're saying 5 to 20 different, and a lot of this information I went and got. I did some Google search, and I just kind of copied and pasted what they were saying these type of internets were. I do sell a lot of wireless backup, and once we kind of uncover all of these, we'll kind of come back and we'll talk about how you would want to use a wireless backup over a DSL. And I've got a lot of customers that do use this, and I'll share with you the application that they use the wireless backup for and how they're using it. There is another type of, it is still cellular, but some of these, the way that it gets provisioned on the wireless network is a little bit different. And you can get up to 50 to 100 megs. It's not guaranteed, and it's also going to be depending upon how far away you are from the towers and from the radio signals. And these can, still be a great application for what you're trying to do. It's very comparable to, some of the lower speeds on DSL, as well as some of the, cable codes. There is still yet another type of internet. It is a cellular, and it's more of a singular application, but I have seen some small offices where they'll use a little MiFi hotspot and they'll have a couple of PCs jump on that hotspot. It's still using the same technology as the wireless and the cellular, but I just want to make sure you know about it. I kind of wanted to put as many different options out here to discuss and to talk about. This one is going to be a game changer. My company, we will be rolling out the Verizon 5G, and that will be a game changer for, the term out there for, the 5G internet. The term I've also heard from some of the large carriers is that it's a cable co-killer or a DSL killer, because you don't have to worry about the fiber from DSL or the coax or the fiber from the cable cos coming into your home or business. This is going to be 100% wireless, and they are showing speeds to be able to go up to a gig, which is amazing for a wireless connection. And I forgot to change the verbiage down here. I do apologize. That's on the other version. It's home on my home PC. I do apologize.
Hey, Kevin, do you mind if I interrupt you real quick?
Sure.
There's a question in the chat that, since you mentioned it, it seems like a good place to stop here and ask this. What does it mean to bring fiber into the home?
What it means to bring fiber into the home or the business, I don't know if you've been driving around. It's at least every city that I've gone to, and I'll be down in Phoenix, and everywhere I'm driving around, you'll see these kind of like these funny looking tractors, and they've got these long arms, and you'll see these guys that have these big, huge spools of blue, green, and orange. And that's running the fiber down the street to different little pops where they'll aggregate the fiber. But they'll be running that same connection into a building. Into a building, they'll put in a bigger conduit. And also at your home, if you've got a cable co like Cox, Comcast, or Charter, depending upon where you are, or even the DSL from the local, they'll come out when you move into a new home. They'll run a small little black cable, and that is bringing it from the little pedestal on the corner, or if it's a bigger service, there's a manhole, or and they'll be feeding from that pedestal or that box directly into your home, and that's putting that home or business, and that's the term that they would use, is that address is now lit with that business's services or fiber. Did I answer the question for you, John?
Yes, you definitely did. And then one follow-up question on that. So there is, because we hear this term all the time, as channel agents, that we're looking for lit buildings. And what that means is simply that service is available to that building. It does not necessarily mean that a particular business is taking advantage of it. So let's say that you have, a 10-story building, and each floor is occupied by a different tenant or company. The guys on the 10th floor may not realize that they actually have access to that high quality fiber. They may be using a lesser service, and until they know and understand that is available to them, they may be continuing to suffer with something less than what's optimally available, correct?
Correct. I mean, and there's kind of some other terms available. So some of the carriers that I work for, we had fiber ready, meaning that the fiber is in the building and it's just spooled, but there's no electronics. And then we have a term, usually when they say it's lit, meaning there is electronics in the basement and it is ready for someone to buy an internet circuit or a circuit across that fiber. Also, just so you're aware, there's what's called MPO, which is main point of entry, where the fiber comes in from the street into a central location in the building that would be called an MPO, where the main point of entry of that service is put. And then all of the other tenants on like the example you used, the 10-story building, on the 10th floor, that company would have to do what's called a Dmarc extension, because most likely that customer on the 10th floor, their server room is going to be within their suite. And so they would need to extend their server room down to the MPO on the first floor, usually the first floor, sometimes they're in the basement. And that would then, that's also what you would hear a term, also a cross connect from the MPO to your server room. Just want to, you know, is you're making sure that you're getting the internet, but also make sure that you have facilities, is a term that is used, or fiber or cable from your server room down to the main point of entry of the building where that fiber provider sits. Okay, with that, I think I'm going to bounce over to another type of internet. This is one that this data, I know that we can get more than 2 megs. There are some satellite providers out there that have, what I've seen, have gotten more than 2 megs. There is some great play for this because it, you don't have to worry about the fiber coming into your building. And we'll kind of, as I unveil all of these, then we'll go back and start talking about why you would want one over the other. But there is a satellite option, and those can be a great play for if you're not worried about having to have fiber put into the building. Cable is also known as cable co, or the coax. And this is going to be, you know, like the Cox, the Charters, Buckeyes, and Comcast. Those are the cable cos. They compete with the DSL, and the DSL is usually coming from the local exchange carrier or the person that owns the telephone poles and the wires and most of the dial tone in those areas. And this, when Cable Co first came out, or cable first came out, I remember I would be working from home and I could tell at 3:30 when all the kids were coming home, and you know, everybody was starting to jump on the internet, because my internet connection would automatically slow down. So with the cable, the biggest problem that I see is, you know, with the upload and download speeds, it's usually not symmetrical. And what I mean by that is, if you go and get 100 meg internet on a cable, it's usually going to be your download speed is going to be 100, but your upload speed might only be like 5 megs. And so that can play into some, you know, cause some problems for you depending on what kind of applications you're doing or what kind of business needs you need for that. But at 3:30, I could tell when everybody came home from school, my connection would drop. And usually with DSL and cable, those are what is deemed out there a term of oversubscribed network, where they, you know, really they should only maybe have 100 subscribers, but they'll maybe subscribe 1,000, just because the odds are not all 1,000 people, and those are just generic numbers. I'm just kind of throwing that out for you to kind of get an idea of what they mean by oversubscribed network. And the last one is, you'll hear the term out there, it's DIA, or dedicated internet access. And this is going to be really your business grade, where you're going to have a higher SLA, service level agreement, from that carrier. And the speeds used to I don't see it anymore, but you used to be able to bond T1s, go from 1.5 megs, bond them to take two of those, make 3 megs, etc. Most of the time now, dedicated Ethernet is going to be even what's known as fast Ethernet, which is 10 megs up to 100 megs. And then there's also over the last year, and I know John, and you can tell me, confirm, it's dramatically changed. I think the old 10 megs is now a gig. And now the old gig is now 10 gigs. And now we've even can go up to speeds up to 100 gig, which is just mind-blowing. And with dedicated internet, one of the ways I like to describe dedicated internet is you're buying a highway. So if you want 100 meg connection, think of it as a 200 lane highway. And what I mean by that is in the highway is going north and south. You have 100 lanes going south and you have 100 lanes going north, meaning that you can both send 100 megs of data and you can receive 100 megs of data, and it's symmetrical. So it's going to be, it's full duplex. That's another term out there that is making sure that you can send the traffic in bidirectional at the same time. Where with some of the DSL and the cable, you can only send so much. So I know that I've done a quote for somebody on some cable codes where it was a 5 by 100. So using my highway term is you can have 100 lanes coming to you, but you can only push out 5 lanes of traffic. And so that kind of helps you understand what kind of business needs you're going to have. And so as we go back, my next slide is my questions again. What do I need? What is and I want you to be thinking about what do you need? And then a sub question of that is, what applications are you doing? Are you trying to access Amazon? Are you trying to access Google Cloud Services? Or what are the applications that you're going to need to get to run your business? Years ago, everything was stored in a server room on-prem. So, the speeds to the internet wasn't that big of a deal. But, and why are there so many options? And because there's so many options is because how you're going to want to protect your business. I'm in the process right now, my life insurance policy, I'm just going through a new, that whole, how much insurance do I need? Why do I need it? Well, it's that what if factor. What if something happens to me? I want to make sure my family's protected. And that's with, are there so many options? You need to be thinking that what if factor. If this one connection goes down, can I survive? If that's an outage of 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, a day, a week, how long can you be down with that one connection? And there's a term out there that everybody's, it's a buzz, is SD-WAN and software defined wide area network. And this is a great play for why you need so many internet connections. And it's kind of the SD-WAN is like the insurance for your business, where you've got multiple offices and you need to have multiple connections to the internet. And why would you want a dedicated internet? Well, because when I'm up at full capacity, I want to be on that 100 lane highway. And then we can go back and take a look at, dial up. We're just going to ignore that. We're just going to pretend that it's not there, but people are still using it. And so with SD-WAN is, wireless or a 3G, 4G, what level or how many connections do you want to put into your business to run and to segregate traffic? So there's some of the customers out there that I have that they will put in kind of like a wireless backup where they might get 20 megs, and they put that in, and they put a little Wi-Fi adapter on it for their guest, for the guest Wi-Fi. Is it nice to have for their customers? Yes. Do they need to have rocket speed and you're paying all kinds of prices for? No, that's a great application for like a little wireless backup. The other play that I have is I have a customer that we have 262 locations, and we're using the wireless backup. It's a very minimal charge, but the customer is only using that for their point of sale software and their credit card machines, because they've had too many problems with the DSL and the cable, because that's what was in their building, that they moved all of their point of sale softwares over to the wireless backup. It was a small monthly fee per location, and they haven't had any issues with making the credit card transactions. And I just want to pause and see if there's any other questions or anything about the internet types, and before we continue on. Nope. Well, so and how am I going to use the internet? And so we need to really make sure that you're working with your trusted advisor. John is a great trusted advisor, and he's got many other people that he can pull in, and we need to really kind of look at the business applications and the business use. What are all of the components? And I think I've already answered the question. Why is there, why use more than one? And that's the insurance, is what if factor. And when I used to run IT back in Boston for an internet service provider, it was one of those things where if we were down, I didn't want to have the CEO call me and say, Kev, why are we down? We couldn't afford to be down because of our customers that were using our product we were the application service provider. And that was back in, oh my gosh, early 2000s. And that was the beginning of, the cloud applications. And those cloud applications, if they're not available to you, can you survive? And more businesses that I go into, there is less and less rack space that is needed on-prem in their own server room. And so really that's why there are so many different applications or types, because you really should be using a couple of them. And a lot of times there'll be, you may want to go with 2 dedicated internet because they're the high bandwidth, high availability, because you always have to, but you're going to go and make sure that you're using 2 different carriers and they have 2 different routes, and your trusted advisor would be able to help you find that information out to make sure that they're not running through the same conduit down the street and someone's cutting a backhoe and now both connections are down. So there's lots of questions that you're going to need to make sure that you're asking to make sure that you're getting the right internet connection or the right backup internet connection for the applications that you're needing to use. One of the other examples within the SD-WAN is that device that you put in, and you can really start to look at your actual applications and make sure, instead of just only using these backup connections in the what if factor, start to look at what type of traffic, and okay, well, this type of traffic, you know what? I'm just going to deem it to be, it's going to go over my wireless backup connection. Oh, this is something that is really important. You can start to prioritize your types of internet and use the different type of internet connections based on, I've got to make sure that this one is, now this one, if it makes it, it's great. So those are some of the internet connections that I kind of wanted to share with you, some of the uses and some of the applications. I do have some other slides, but I didn't want to go down that, I just wanted to let you know about CCI. And I wanted to take the opportunity that CCI, not only can we help with dedicated internet, but the 4G, the wireless backup, co-location, SD-WAN. We have a wide range of products and services that CCI is a carrier, but we have partners, because I don't always have access into everybody's building. So I'm going to have to go and rely on the Lumens, the Verizons, AT&Ts, Windstreams, and other providers that have fiber into those facilities. So I'm a competitive local exchange carrier, and we've got a whole bunch of data security products, as well as some voice. And one of the things I also wanted to throw up here was, here is an application. Do you have a hosted PBX? Is it what provider? How are you going to be connecting to that cloud provider? I hope not over a wireless or even a DSL. You'd probably want to make sure that you have a dedicated internet connection, because, depending upon the type of hosted PBX you have, you want to make sure that the call quality is there. And that's going to also help with the type of packets you have, and the throughput and the latency that you're going to get. Let's see, there was a couple of other things I threw in here to kind of help you illustrate and understand what type of products you can use over the internet, and what ones will be great and what ones probably would not. So I wanted to kind of share this with you. The LTE business internet that we offer, we will only guarantee up to 50 megs, that you have the up to 50 megs worth of process. And they are, in this application, I have a construction company, and they've bought these cradle points from us, and we put in the wireless SIM. And the reason that the construction company loves them is they're already in the process of building the building. There is no Mpls, there is no fiber, so there is no connection. So they're using the LTE business internet from us, and they can get up to 50 megs. And when they move the trailer to the next construction location, well, they have the internet. So that is a great application for them. Unfortunately, they don't have a failover. Some of the customers, they'll either get, we'll work with them and we'll put in 2 different wireless providers. So if one wireless provider goes down, they can have another one. So there's things that we can kind of still give them some redundancy. There was a couple of other things I wanted to give you some use cases on a wireless higher end internet. There was a couple of examples that I shared with you with the retail, but the LTE type of internet is a great, depending upon if it's a small little retail shop, it's a great play for that, because you don't have to worry about the landlines, you don't have to worry about, but it's also even a better backup, because you're still, you don't have to worry about a fiber cut or anything. And then lastly, I just kind of wanted to throw out this one here, which is what I would call the wireless backup, where the 5 to 12 megs is what I've been seeing. And this is what we have a customer that is using this product, and it's small dollars per month. And it's great for the application of, they're using it for their point of sale software. But I do have customers that are using it as they have their primary dedicated, they have, like a DSL or a cable co as a secondary, and then they'll use this as the term is a tertiary internet access. And so as you're going through it, there's lots of options, and we just need to help you figure out what applications you're going to be using, why you're going to be using those, and that's all I have. I want to open it up and see if there's any questions or comments.
I have a question. And this is just like, I just had this experience last night. I was at a volunteer meeting in a church setting, and there was a bunch of us in the room, but there was also like a group on a video call, and the church kept getting like kicked off, it kept failing like several times. And someone mentioned that maybe they could turn their mobile device into a hotspot and just kind of like try to get that it's stable again, because it was a night meeting. But I was also thinking about some of the video calls I have with people around, with other workers, and that typically sometimes my internet would be unstable, or it would say your internet connection is unstable. So would this be like the tertiary product would be something that could fix that, or would a hotspot be better?
I mean, what I would recommend for that, we have a device. Normally you'll hear out there is an SD-WAN. And when everybody says, oh, SD-WAN, you have multiple sites. We do a lot with SD-WAN at a single location, but multiple type of internets. And so I've got a partner out there that he's in his home office, and in this device that he is using, he's got his Cableco, his local cable provider. He's got the local DSL, but then he has also plugged in one of those wireless hotspots. And this device will look at all three connections, analyze the traffic on those signals, and kind of deem, hey, I'm having some problems with this one, and it won't send any traffic down. And the nice thing about the device that we have is it will keep the voice and the videos going through all the connections. So if one of the connections drop or it's really bad, your call and your video will never go down. And so sometimes it could be that you may not have enough bandwidth. The DSL or the cable provider for the church, and I know my church does that as well. They get the lowest cost dollar amount, but then when you start doing a big presentation in church to multiple people outside of the church setting, it can be problematic because you don't have enough bandwidth. And why it happens is your PC is sending and the bandwidth can't keep up. So that's why you'll get what's called jitter or drop packets, and all of a sudden the framing is not aligned and you'll miss words or miss some of the video because there's not enough bandwidth to handle what you're trying to push. And so go back to my highway. How many highway lanes do you need in both directions to have a successful webinar or a meeting? And sometimes it could be that you have multiple types of internet and have a device that is going to manage that and prioritize and keep that connection going for you. That's how I would probably solve that. So yes, a MiFi or a hotspot could, but only if a device could help manage that.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe the church could invest in something like that. All right, thank you.
Yeah, usually with the clergy or the religion, that's not a high dollar amount on their expense line and most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, we have another question. One of your slides showed the term private Mpls. What does that mean?
I think that was was it this one? Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so we have, there's the regular internet where, you know, you're going to a www or whatever is out there on the, and that would be considered public, where whenever you're out on the internet, that is public, everybody can see it. Private MPLS is multi-packet labeled switching. And what that is it's kind of replicating the internet, but only for your offices. So I have a customer that has, you know, 42 locations, but because, and they're a bank, and so the information that they pass from branch to branch to branch to their data center is all very, very sensitive information. And the regulators tell them they have to make sure that they're passing this traffic across what is a private network. So anybody on the internet will not be able to see it. It is provisioned, it's built across the provider's backbone. And with an MPLS, you can only use one provider because it has to go across that provider's backbone. And that provider is carving out a portion of their backbone. And I hope that you guys understand what I mean by backbone. It's the main network of that provider, such as we'll use the term, we'll use Verizon, because that's where I was previous. Verizon will say to you, Mr. Customer, I'm going to give you access to my network, but we're going to keep it private, and only the branches and your data centers that are deemed private can see this traffic. And so that's what the private MPLS is. It's replicating an internet, but it's only between certain sites, and it is only private. You can't, if you only have an MPLS network, you can't type in www.google.com. It won't go anywhere because it's private. It can only go in between the locations that are deemed private.
Thank you.
You bet.
I have another question, please.
Sure.
When you mentioned about the bandwidth, is that something that you can get more of? Bandwidth? Or
yes, and it depending upon how you're buying it. So like a lot of times I'll work with my I don't have a slide. So a lot of times I will work with my customer and they'll think, well, I think I need 50 megs today. And I go, well, do you think you're going to need more down the road? Well, we're growing, we're having some, you know, we're going to be hiring more people. Our projections are to double the size. So how you buy it up front on the dedicated is for that type of a customer, we could look at doing what would be 100 meg access, but only give them 50 megs. So you've got the potential to grow to more bandwidth, but you've got to make sure that you're asking these things up front, because if you only bought, say, 100 megs on 100 meg access, and you're now going, oh man, I need more. Well, now you're at a point where you have to bring in brand new services because the 100 megs is capped. And that would be on a fast E. Then the next level up would be a gig access. So you could do a 100 on a gig, 200 on a gig, 500 on a gig. So yes, you can grow, but it's also going to depend on how you bought it. And hopefully working with your trusted advisor, that they can help you so that you're not going to be in a situation where you're capped out and you've still got 2 years left on your agreement. Hopefully, you know, you're asking right questions and your trusted advisor is asking you on what your growth potential is. So yes, you can, but there are some little asterisks that you would need to watch for.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions? Now is the opportunity to get it directly from the expert.
No, I learned a lot. Thank you very much.